Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Josh Perrymon. I know some of the guys in here. Other guys I don't know yet. What I want to do is, I had a really nice talk I've given before, and it had a lot of nice fancy words in it, and went through and had nice screenshots and little pictures. But I drove in about 10 hours last night from Alabama, and decided to screw it. I'm going to give a new one. So I got in about 6:30 this morning, stayed up, ate breakfast when all the miners were going to work, and wrote this in about an hour. It's not real fancy, but what I want to do is I want to talk about basically my thoughts on penetration testing, my techniques, what I think works, what doesn't work, and go over some scenarios and things that I've used in the past with good success. So to get it, I guess to start off, who am I? I've been doing security pretty much all my life. When I was 12 years old, my neighbor had a Tandy computer, had a really cool game on it, and he changed the password on me, and I couldn't stand it, and I had to go over to his house and use it. So I decided to figure out how to get into it. So I read all the Tandy manuals and this and that, and figured out how to get into it, and that kind of started my security career because I thought that was so much fun, being able to get into people's computers. So I spent, probably the first 10 or 15 years of my career drinking the Cisco Kool-Aid and learning all the packet layer network stuff. And then that kind of led into applications and then social engineering and physical security, what I really enjoyed the most. I developed the first OWASP Live CD, I think back in 2006 when I was over in Australia. I run the OWASP chapter down in Alabama. I was running the Birmingham chapter, now the Huntsville chapter. I guess really co-discovered, as they call it, the first Mozilla exploit, the little shell exploit. It came out under IE, and I just really applied the same thing over to Mozilla, and it worked. So that made me super cool. The other things I'm into is social engineering and RFID hacking. Let's see. Just to start off, I was thinking driving up here, my thoughts on penetration testing, kind of where it's at right now, where's the community at in general. And, when I started my business a long time ago, I told myself I'm not going to be the guys that buys the tool and pushes the button, and that's a security test. I think a lot of organizations or testers or guys in the industry, if they hadn't grown up with it and really pure security guys, I think there's a move towards that, relying on what the commercial tools will do, setting the scope up, putting the information in, hitting the button and going. But again, are the bad guys going to do that? I mean, are they really going to send that much traffic and that much, bullshit in the logs? No. So, yeah, it's good, but don't call it a pen test when it's a vulnerability assessment. Kind of the second bulletin there, a 200-page Nessus report is not a pen test. I think we all know that, but a lot of guys in the industry, I won't say a lot of guys. There's people out there that call that a penetration test, and it's not. Real pen testing is full scope, and I think companies are getting a little better with that, but you still see a lot of it. We only want to test this piece, or we only want to test these technologies, and I think that's driven a lot by regulations of what they have to test to check the box. But a bad guy's not going to say, I'm just going to look at this server. I'm not going to hit your business partner. I'm not going to look at these development applications you got, because there may be problems in it. They're going to go for the low-hanging fruit, and they're going to look. They're going to look at all aspects. I'm trying to tie that into the OSI model later and kind of go over that. Also, my thoughts on penetration testing is why would you want to turn off your intrusion detection and not want to, kind of follow your incident response program? To me, penetration testing is a good way to do a simulated real-world attack. So you want to go out and you want to do what the bad guys are going to do and see how your systems react and how your response programs and everything work. But a lot of times we find companies want to turn their devices off so they don't get a lot of alerts and just again look more for a vulnerability assessment. Other thoughts are what about people? What about testing people? To me that's kind of the biggest risk an organization faces. Because the old saying, there's no patch for human stupidity. So I'm a strong believer in putting people into the mix when doing testing, but in order to do it correctly, I think you need to test based on what you're telling them not to do. So if you have policies and procedures in place that say, don't do these 5 things when you get an email, I would want to come in and test those 5 things and measure how many people are doing it or not doing it. In other areas, new technologies, VMware, it's not really new, but it's starting to get really deployed on a wide level. Mobile phones, how much information you got on your phone? What's in your inbox right now? How do phones process spoofed or phishing emails? There's a big risk there as well. I wanted to hint a little bit or talk a little bit on commercial tools because I had this come up last week with dark reading during the interview, and basically they called me up and asked me what I thought about new Metasploit Pro and what I thought about commercial tools right now. And I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. It makes, as a penetration tester, it makes the job so much easier. If you got a $25,000 tool to set up and let run and have guys support it and this and that. But the thing is I don't think someone should rely on the tool, because the tool is, it's coded in software and code, so there's only so many checks it can do and so much logic it can do. Most of the times, if I find a vulnerability in a somewhat secure network, it's not normally through something simple like a SQL injection or something that a scanning tool has found in the past. It's been a logic flaw. So say a password reset, going in and actually manually modifying the session variables or something along that lines. So if I just relied on the tools to go through and scan it, they didn't find that. So that's, I just think that's moving forward. That's an issue with a lot of people. It's just relying on what the tools say. Where I see the place for tools, the commercial tools, is more of kicking them off and letting them run and letting them, kind of validate what you find. So you go start the tool over here and go let it do its thing, and you go do your the methodology or whatever is in place. You go through and do the testing, and as you're finding results, you're using that to verify with the tool. So the tool can do a lot of neat things, go out and scan and look for brute force stuff on the website, things like that. A lot of that can save you time, but again, to me, it's more to verify work than to rely on it. So now I'm off that kick. Scope. Again, real attackers don't test just portions of the network or environment or say, hey, we're going to test these 2 servers, and we're going to leave the other 500 live IP addresses we have out of scope. It's not realistic. And the other things, and again, all this stuff is what I'm trying to get across is just kind of thinking a little bit differently about attacking an organization. Think more along the lines of, maybe what they hadn't thought of in the past. Not your network stuff, not your application stuff, but kind of outside the box. So some examples of that are physical. What if you walk in and bust a window out and open the credenza up and get all the files and leave? And that's an attack. And that's a threat. It's a little different. Again, mobile devices, email. I want to touch on that a little later, but email to me is the easiest way to get in an organization, other than voice or email, because the issue with email is that the SMTP standard is broken. It's been broken for a long time. Every email server and everything's built on a broken standard. And then you have all the marketing companies coming in, it's essentially doing a phishing attack. Say if it's Books A Million, if you start looking at the links, all the links don't go back to a Books A Million domain. A lot of them go back to the marketing company or whatever they're using for analytics. Same thing you do in a phishing test, or phishing assessment, or phishing hack, whatever you want to call it, is that we're modeling what's already being done. So, the latest systems are not picking it up. The appliances, the email client software, it's not picking that up. And this is always one of my favorites is kicking a developer's ass. Developers and guys like that have the keys to the kingdom. So what happens if you catch a guy coming out in the parking lot and throw a bag on his head and put him in the back of the car? He's going to talk unless he's a real hard ass. But this is just again, it's more of outside the box type of type of thinking. And a friend of mine, Chris Nickerson, we joke a lot about that one. That's I heard him say that in a talk one time. I think it was OWASP DC, and I thought that was pretty good, so I had to throw that in there. Okay, so I did a little research. I know, not too fancy, but here's kind of just a brain dump of what again, drinking the Cisco Kool-Aid. I grew up on the OSI model, APS, T, and DP. I'll never forget that. All the 7 layers of the OSI model. So what I'll try to do is look at this, because the organization all at a lower level all comes back to the OSI model, where it's a network, it's an application, it's your phones, wireless, whatever. That all applies back to the OSI model. So what I tried to do is I've added another layer on top. This is my 8-layer OSI model with the human layer on top. So basically what I've done is I've sit back and I look at this for each engagement, and I try to apply potential attacks. And why I got to this is because I think it really kind of goes back to where we are right now in the computer industry. I mean, if you think back 10 years ago or so, maybe 15 years ago, websites were real simple, not real rich, not real dynamic. The bad guys were going after the web servers. Everybody, they didn't have firewalls in place, you had these ports open, had these really cool IIS vulnerabilities that people go and they scan with their Nessus, and they said, oh, I've downloaded the whatever little GUI interface for this exploit, let's try that out. Hit the button, bam, they're into the web server. Okay, so say that's 10 or 15 years ago. Everybody was hacking those ports. Your operating system itself, getting in a lot on the network layer. So what happens in the industry is that the vendors saw that. Hey, we need to put a widget or box X in place to do this. So we saw everybody start getting firewalls and start doing some perimeter intrusion detection and start blocking some of these real basic attacks. Because at that time, the applications weren't real rich. We weren't hooking into all this data and sharing data and doing all this dynamic stuff throughout there. So what it seemed like is once we started securing it here, started securing these layers, it started pushing bad guys, started pushing attackers up the OSI model. So okay, now your network's secure, damn. So I can't push the button and get into your IIS web server. What am I going to do? Well, I'll look at your application. The security forced them up the stack. So now they're starting to look at these applications, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, real basic misconfiguration of the server. So let's look back and say 5 years ago. So networks, fairly secure at this point. Everybody's smart enough to have a firewall in place and doing some intrusion detection, so on and so forth. Bad guys aren't getting in with the easy network exploit. So they start going up the OSI model, start attacking applications, SQL injection, hitting the database, things like that, cross-site scripting. So what ends up happening is that, again, the vendors come to the rescue and you start protecting the application layer, through OWASP, through web application firewalls, through secure coding, so you start mitigating those application risks. So they're not getting in the network now, and they're not getting in with these real basic application attacks. So where does that leave the bad guy to do? He's not going to just quit and say, oh, damn, you got me. I give up. No, that's not how it works. So you start looking at other methods. So to me, what this has done is it's pushed them up the stack even further to the human element. So we're not doing the basic network attacks or the application attacks. We're attacking the humans, attacking the users, the employees. And we're doing that through a number of vectors. Email, voice, calling on the phone, social engineering, free texting, things of that nature. And also on site. Because it's hard for me to put the kind of the physical stuff where it says physical. I kind of wanted to put it at the top. But really, the more I think about it, before you start any assessment, one of the first things to do is reconnaissance. So that kind of, to me, it all ties back down to the bottom. The smash and grab, walk in, steal something, hardware dropping, things of that nature. But this is kind of what I look at when doing a penetration test is how to apply potential vulnerabilities or potential exploits to the 8-layer OSI model. Attacking the human layer. This is one of my most favorite things to do. When I was going through college or trying to go to college, I had a part-time job as a door-to-door salesman for about 6 months. The worst, absolute worst job in the world. Now I can look back and see how it was all set up, how the sales managers come in every day, flashing around money, saying they sold everything. It's all bullshit. They didn't sell anything. They've been playing golf or whatever all day, and they just come in with that same money every day saying that they've been out and they sold everything. Now I'm smart enough to see that. But anyway, when I got into that, basically you come in the morning, they load your car up with a bunch of junk, and you go out to parking lots or businesses or see somebody on the street and say, boy, do I got a deal for you. By now you know, blah, 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 blah. Well, that got me into subliminal messaging, body language, NLP, and it really got me understanding people and understanding what I say. It's not only what you say, but it's how you pronunciate each word. So I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store. Each way you say that, it has a different meaning and it's received different by the human mind. So that's all used when doing these type of attacks. I could sit here right now and ask you, has anybody ever gotten a speeding ticket or anybody ever went to jail? You might have one person raise their hand, But if I sit here and talk 20 minutes about it and warms you up on the topic, just flow and let it hit, then there may be 10 people. You might just tell the truth, but your mind's not thinking about it because you've already got that trust. So it's just kind of an automatic thing. But anyway, back to attacking the human layer. These are some of my favorite human layer attacks. Direct email-based attacks. Again, that's where I spend a lot of my time in research because I've been doing it for, how long did AOL Kisses or AOL something, a long time ago. They had this little thing through AOL they sent, and it had like a big lipstick kiss on the front. Someone sent you a message, and I was probably 14. So anyway, what I found out back then is I could take that, download the source, send it through Hotmail, coming from a Hotmail, not even spoof it, and host the phishing site of GeoCities with a little banner on top, all the little icons flashed around. Now notice that all my buddies, they didn't care. They didn't notice it was spoofed. They didn't look at the URL. They didn't care about the little icons on top. Just clicked on it. They were worried about the message. Oh man, somebody sent me a kiss, whatever it was. I got to see who this is. So it's just the way of thinking. A lot of times when someone's motivated, they're not going to look at the details. So that kind of helps get past the little technical pieces. But again, the reason with email-based attacks, the reason why it's getting through everything, it's getting through all the filters, it's getting through the appliances, it's getting through the email clients, it's going straight to smartphones, is because that a real phishing attack mimics marketing. Doing the exact same thing that Books A Million is doing, or whatever. So if you go out and you use a server that's, say, a shared, rack space or whatever email server would be that may already be seen by an appliance, and you go out and you use an email, say a blasted email from Books A Million or something that may have already been seen by the appliance, then there's a very, very high probability, say 98%, that the spoofed email or the attack email will get through. Phone-based. Those are a little, phone-based attacks take some more planning. Email attacks do take the planning and get the scenario right and make sure it all works and everything, but the phone-based attacks, with email you're not talking to somebody, so you're not giving those hints in your voice or how you pronounce words and things like that. But when you're on the phone with somebody, the human mind processes that. If you're the tone of your voice, if you're a little scared or nervous, the human mind picks up on it. So what we do, is we use voice changers. You go with a known pretext. You just got to get kind of psyched up, when you call and do it. I hired a good friend of mine. Is a police officer who's been doing narcotics investigation and stuff for about 10 or 15 years, and I was needing some help with some big social engineering jobs, and he was like, oh yeah, I've been doing this stuff forever. I'm trained by the FBI to do this pre-texting. I'll help you out. Well, that's great. So I got him in, we come up with a plan. We knew the scenario. We're calling in from support and saying that the remote capture banking software is down. We want him to log in and give us some information. So he went down and he looks at the scenario, and he's reading it, and I see him kind of getting a little nervous. He's looking around, he goes, I'll be right back, I gotta go smoke. I go smoke a cigarette, comes back, now he's ready. So he gets the phone, he grabs it, about to pick it up, and puts it down, and it just made him so nervous, even though he's done that before. I mean, it's something you have to be prepared for and get in the right mindset to do it. So, of course, I got mad by that and really got me motivated. So I picked up the phone and got 10 passwords in about 5 minutes. Anyway, the next one is pretty common. We've seen it for a while. Is the USB CD hardware drops. That still works really good. I forget the name of the tool. I think it came out a couple of years ago. Sawblade or Switchblade or something like that. It was really
Hacksaw.
Cool. Hacksaw, right?
Yeah, I think they have usually Switchblade and sometimes Hacksaw.
Right. Now, that was really cool. When that came out, I had that, got that DEF CON maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And boy, I had a lot of fun with it, going back and playing around with it and seeing, if I could make up these customized USBs, spend $20 and get 5 or 10 USB keys with logos on them. And put a little extra time into it. And what was finding out, that's about 80 to 90% successful. Go right in, plug right into the inside of the network, bam, you're in. The other stuff that has worked really well is on-site authority attacks. It's different when you're in front of somebody. Because if you look at the culture, and it's different for each part, the cultures you're attacking. But if you look at the culture of the United States, we're all taught to respect authority. So a police officer or whatever, judge, whoever it may be, boss, a lot of people kiss ass. If you walk up in a suit or whatever, they're going to think, oh man, I got to do what this guy says. So being an attacker, you use that to your advantage. So, basically you put on a suit, you get a lot more respect. I could go dressed like this somewhere to a bank and there's like another whatever. But I had changed. I go put a suit on, come back, actually shave, and like, oh, this guy must be all right. He's got a suit on. He must know what he's talking about. Must be a good businessman. But it's all back to the way culture, the way they're thinking, the way we're taught to think. So when doing the on-site type attacks, it really helps to play that position of authority or that role of authority. Most of the times people will not second guess you, as long as you're confident in yourself. The other stuff that we see a little bit, blackmail style attacks. I was watching Greed or one of these crazy shows on CNN or CNBC, and it was an FBI guy that was feeding inside information to a stock trader. And he had this because he had blackmailed the FBI guy. And he said, if you don't give me this information, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. So there's some instances of that, in the real world. However, that's kind of hard to do if you're a security company. It's kind of hard to blackmail somebody. So that may not be something that you could use as a technique, but it's something that's being done in the real world. Again, another one that's really successful is browser-based attacks. So either via email, I send you a link, get you to click on it, or automatically make your browser go click on it. Or another one could be calling up and just saying, let me put this to a scenario, maybe it's a little better. About 4 years ago, I was doing a hack for a trucking company. And they wanted to see if I could get their IP address information for all their little remote branches. DSL, nothing, not hosting any services, nothing like that. So I was trying to think, wow, how am I going to do this? It's kind of tricky. So I decided to go in through business operations. That meaning I called up, what I did is I took an Apache web server and I put a PDF or created a Word document, and I put, what I said was specifications. I called this guy up, act like I was real rich, talked to the sales guy. Hey, Frank, yeah. I'm wanting to build a real nice rig, probably one of the $1 million jobs. I've got specifications. I want granite, I want marble, I want I want it all, leather roof. You know, and the guy's just about to freak out, you know, because he thinks he's about to get rich off sales and commission. So he never thought twice. He goes, well, how can you give me this information? I said, well, my fax machine's broke. I'd love to fax to you, but it's broke. You know, I would email to it, but, you know, blah, 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 whatever. I said, but I got it on the website. If you want to come to my website, I got the document out there. You know, you can look at it, see my specifications, and give me a quote. So what ended up happening is he ended up, you know, oh, what's the website address again? So he's put it in his browser, hits the go button. From this little remote branch, he comes outbound, goes to my server, and I know his operating system, geolocation, IP address, you know, all the plugins he's using. So just by using the browser, you know, that's a lot of risk. It's how you deliver, how you get the user to go to the website. You know, if it's via link or it's via on the phone, tell them to go. Okay, this is where I figured out I'm probably a little bit dyslexic because I read magazines from the back and I do my attacks backwards. So what I try to do is think of the end result. You know, in this case, it would be, I wanted them to type in ipconfig and read that out to me on the screen. So I identified what the end result wanted to be, and then I worked backwards to figure out how to do that. So in this scenario, this was a bank scenario where I called them up and, you know, I did some research first, figured out who their vendors are, you know, called up saying I was from an IT company and I do this service. Oh, you already do that now? Well, who does that for you? Oh, ABC Corporation. That's good to know. I mean, you're pretty happy with the guys? Just like it's a regular, you know, sales call. But I'm really digging information back to be able to use that in my pre-text when I call them back up. So anyway, I called back up and I told them, I said, yeah, I'm from so-and-so over here. Need to do a little troubleshooting. We're having a lot of problems. Is your internet working? You know, the first little icebreaker. Oh yeah, the internet's fine. Oh, that's great. I know, you know. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go to the branch capture machine. And I need you to bring up the command prompt and type in some command. I kind of said it fast and overloaded them with it, trying to think, you know, whoa, I need you to talk me through this. Hold on a second. And you knew that you get in every time when they say, hold on, I'm going to go in there and transfer the phone number. You know, that's an instant knowing that they're going to go do pretty much whatever you tell them to do. You know, I had one lady that didn't know anything about computers, never even seen the little black box, DOS box, and I walked her through doing a net add and just a long command. It took about 20 minutes to do it, you know, but it worked. Once you had them going, you know, we had that trust established. But anyway, that's how I do most everything is work. Try to figure out what the result needs to be, and then work backwards to that to figure out how it can be possible. Remote attacks. Some of this stuff is new to me here, so. Email based. So I hit on this earlier, and you know, the issue is email broke. It's been broke since it's been created. So, you know, what we're seeing is some controls put into place to try to mitigate this risk. So SPF records, and that's everybody's thing. I went out trying to release this research and saying, you know, we're getting through everything out there. Oh, Microsoft has SPF records. We're safe. I can sleep. You know, no problem. Okay. I mean, it's good in theory if you had someone looking at the exact URL. So basically, when I did a little research with LinkedIn and saying it was from Bill Gates and called up a bunch of different people and sent the same email as a control email, same one through, you know, 10 or 15 different clients, smartphones, appliances, and it all got through. And they couldn't believe it because, you know, LinkedIn has an SPF record. Well, how's this working? Well, to bypass it, all you have to do is change the host name in the front. So make up something. You know, if live.microsoft.com has an SPF record, you know, if you try to spoof that and send it in, it looks like it'll block it. You know, oh, block. Okay. Well, live1.com or live1.microsoft.com doesn't have an SPF record. So you send it from that one, it's not going to get blocked. Or even better, you make your own URL, livemicrosoft.com, and send it in, and it's not going to get blocked either. Other things in Other things that we're doing or seeing is again, this phishing stuff's really simple. Like I said, I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. It's a long time ago. Nothing's really changed. All we're doing now is we're mimicking what the email marketing companies are doing. That's basically all the Books of Me and the Amazon, whatever, all these emails. I mean, it's phishing. It's spoofed to begin with. It's broke from the start. So how are you going to process business, legitimate emails, and then I come into the same thing and you're going to block mine? I mean, it's almost impossible to do. And the other things that we've seen, it's not just click on this link and log in. We've updated Microsoft Outlook over the weekend. I need you to click here and log in and make sure your account's still valid. I mean, yeah, that still works. It's about a 60% attack, but we don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to rely on the user actually interacting and putting in information, the old password phishing attack. Now it's multi-layered threats. So if you don't even have to click on a link anymore, all you got to do is preview an email that I sent you. It processes the scripts and processes the information in the email. Yeah, you can add that on top of it. Try to get them to submit their credentials, but really all they have to do is receive the email. So email payloads, I was talking about that. There's a bunch of different ones. We can do recon, send out a bunch of standardized, simple emails. Again, I go back to the Books of Me and stuff, things that people are really used to seeing. You go on social networks and learn their habits, their hobbies, things like that, and further drill down and target them. But, again, you start sending the same. I get a Books of Me an email, I turn around, put that in my tool, send it right back out. I mean, there's a good chance it's going to get through because they're seeing that come through at the kind of same time, and especially on a small level. So, I'm not talking about 1,000 users. I'm talking about 25 users. What I see is it's over 25. You start triggering signatures and the appliances can start figuring out then. But if it's processing 10,000 emails in the past hour, my one little email, it's got a pretty good chance of sliding through. So recon, again, this is old web design stuff. If anybody in here takes their browser and goes to my website when I have tracking running on it, just basic marketing tools, geolocation, IP address, operating system, screen size, browser, plugins. That's a lot of information. A lot of information to use. So the old web design trick there was, back before the websites really adjusted to your browser, and everybody was kind of, using a small screen or big screen. You wrote these redirect scripts, to look at those, look at the browser headers and say, if it's Microsoft, go here. If it's Mac, go here. If the screen size is this, go here. So same thing with this. If I send a phishing attack and it comes out, if BlackBerry, go here. If Internet Explorer IE8, go here. So that's all detailed browser exploits based on the client. So other stuff, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, the password hacking payload, pretty simple in there. But again, we're seeing multi-layered stuff, so it's not just a single attack, it's 4 or 5 different attack vectors in one email. Voice-based stuff. So I hit on this a little bit. I'm not going to dig too deep in it. One thing I like to do is I've used voice-based stuff really successfully in the past. Say you're targeting an organization and they want you to do like a real black box pen test. They don't want to give you much information, but they've got these objectives they want you to satisfy. So you go out and they're not going to give you any information on their email. Well, it doesn't take, to collect 2 or 3 of them to kind of see the naming convention. It's their first name, dot last name, first initial, dot last name. You can apply that across the organization because it's pretty much standardized. So one thing that I like to do is I like to wait till about 2 in the morning, when I'm just getting wound up, starting to work a little bit, and I like to call into the PBX. And I like to manually go through every extension and write those names down. So then if I know John Adams, Bill Smith, Tom Jenkins, I know if your naming convention is first initial last name. I just call them the PBX and got 200 employees. So now all I got to do, and what division they're in, what kind of database they have access to. So you can just go back in and put that into the email-based attack. On-site attacks. This is very, very successful. I think I don't know if I've ever been stopped going on site from any kind of bank, airport, no matter what it is. You know, and it depends on the planning and you know, technology and tools you have. One time I was doing a large airport, and I went into the kickoff meeting with the client, and the security guy, the physical guy, was just really nice. And you know, he was like, "There's no way. It's not possible. You can't get in unless you blow the building up. You're not getting into our data." I said, "All right, that's cool." So I was there he didn't know I was there for like a week and a half. So the first night I went in and dressed up kind of crazy, and I went and got in a wheelchair, and I had my laptop and everything with me, and I had a blanket over my legs, and I wheeled up beside the kiosk, and I unplugged it and plugged in, you know, the kiosk plug into the network. And I ended up running a little sniffer on and finding out the MAC address, the MAC address on the kiosk, because they were doing MAC filtering. So I couldn't, you know, definitely couldn't get by that. So anyway, I spoofed the MAC. It thought I was the kiosk. I stayed on the network for probably 18 hours. I sat there in a wheelchair and got into everything that way. So the next day, I started planning to try to get into their offices. So he was right. They got security guards. They had cameras everywhere. I mean, it was a pain in the ass. So what I ended up doing was on a Sunday, they had a board conference room. And they were actually having some kid's birthday party in there. It was probably this many people. They're all looking up, you know, the kids opening up presents. And I walk in with a backpack on, black T-shirt, and they all kind of stopped, and they all looked around. I said, "I'm here to fix so-and-so." They're like, "Okay." They turned back around. They're all partying again, and they had an AV room with the window open. So I walked up to the AV room, didn't see anybody looking. I did a front row in through the AV room window. And just so happened that went into the legal offices, went into the data, all the network stuff. So I was there over the weekend. I was in that room for 8-10 hours. Nobody was there. Every legal record that the airport's ever had, you know, was on the wall. And they just couldn't believe it, you know. But again, it's alternate style attacks, you know, something that maybe people may not think of. But, you know, if you've got a bad guy that's on crack or whatever, really hungry, I mean, they're going to get pretty aggressive, and they're going to try things that are a little different. You know, the other things that work really well is what I call the smash and grab. So you're in and out in 2 minutes or less. You know, you walk in and just go get the data. Go get the laptop. Walk into a business and walk right out. You know, hang out with the smokers and you know, hold a box or whatever you got to do to get inside. But, you know, in and out, 2 minutes, gone. I mean, it's really hard to protect against. You know, unless you have really good physical security, really good visitor controls, and you're not letting these people walk around locations. Hardware dropping, we talked about that. RFID hacking. It's pretty cool. So, you know, most people use little RFID badges. You know, they're passive equipment. So you go in, you put it up, the scanner powers it, it powers the chip, and it sends the data back out. Pretty easy stuff. Everybody's kind of into it now, and I've gotten out of it, so I'm not really up on all the latest cool stuff. But a lot of things I wanted to do with RFID hacking. So what we ended up doing was setting up a really expensive scope, and we had EPC Generation 2 RFID tags through a wall in the next room. And I wanted to see if we could look on the bit layer and figure out what the tag was saying, reading. We went up and you swapped it to the reader. And everybody said, no, you can't do that with RFID. I mean, it's a short-range technology. There's no way you can do that, right? Yeah, wrong. So it's all on the equipment that you have. I hired some scientist guy out of California that really knew this way better than I did. And he just loved this experiment. So we set up a little room and really sensitive equipment, and was able to sniff and see, you know, if you look at the graph, it's kind of like a wave or a sign or whatever wavelength, you can see the ones and zeros. So you took that and converted it back over, and sure enough, it turned out to be the access code on the badge. So if you had the ability to write that, you're walking right in. So the thing was, in the U.S., with EPC Generation 2 stuff, they really control who can write. Who can write to the access. Because basically on the tag, it's a couple fields, but one's the facility code and the other one's the user. So in the U.S., man, they really keep a lockdown on who can have those tools. But my buddies over in China don't, right? So if you know the right people, you call up and you can get, or make your own now, but you can get tools to write that to RFID cards and to clone them. The other things that I got into when I was on this RFID kick was attacking the systems directly. So putting a SQL injection on my card going in. I got that to work with a cheaper system, and I started getting into the HID stuff. And there's a lot of legal things going on with all that. And maybe some of the ways I got some of the code was a little bit unethical, but I decided just to back out the whole thing because I don't want to spend a lot of money on lawyers. But the other thing that I wanted to try and haven't tried yet is, has anyone ever thought, would the RFID door fell open or fell closed? Right? So if it's on the main door of a company, and if I went up with a handheld taser, right, and you go up and you load the thing with 30,000 volts or whatever, and just fry it, is it going to fell open or closed? That's what I haven't tested yet. I wanted to, but my little lab, you can't handle something like that.
Considering they die if you lose power, I would say it fell closed. Some fell closed, some legally have to fall open.
Right, because you think it would be a risk if it fell closed and nobody can get out of the organization. So maybe next time I have a full scope pen test on somebody else's stuff, I'll try that. I'm interested to see what that would do. And the other things, again, with the SQL injection and things like that, it's just a database back end. So what I was wanting to do is to be able to write a universal style card, say for EPC Gen 2 or a certain regulation, and go up, get it scanned, make it come back as true, and then you're in. Attacking access control devices. I don't think there's anything really new here. One time I did get into a network with the Ethernet-based biometric reader. It was round to the door of the server room, and I looked, and they didn't secure the plastic piece on the bottom, so I pulled it off, and it was a Cat5 cable. Hey. So I plugged right in, got a DHCP and mounted inside the network. Thought that was pretty interesting. So there's a lot of devices coming out now that are that have network capabilities. So same thing with the kiosk. The administrator, he just really freaked out before, saying there's no way. We got MAC filtering in place. You're not going to get by that. It wasn't very hard. This is probably the last story I got. I think I'm done here. I was doing, one of my favorite ones was what I call the retard bug guy. There was a certain gas company that was really secure, couldn't get in through the network, couldn't get in through the application, actually had a hard time getting in through voice. So they wanted to see what we could do on site, because they had all these visual controls, all this, the monitoring, all this stuff going on. So we did the recon, we went during the daytime, got all the hidden cameras and everything, and got an idea of all the entrance points, where there are control devices in place, what physical controls do they have. So come back, drink a few beers and come up with the attack plan. So my buddy, he's never done any of the on-site stuff. He was nervous as a shithouse rat, right? So he could go do it. So he brought me in to do it. So I'm back saying, man, I know it's going to work. I'm going to dress up like a retarded bug guy. He goes, man, what? I said, take me to Lowe's, I'll show you. So this was kind of winter time. It was up kind of the northern states. And I went to Lowe's and I bought a $5 clear sprayer. And I did one of these deals where I put my hat down like this and I took a toboggan and put over it. And then I acted like I had a limp and I put some different clothes on and stuff. And I had all my surveillance gear and everything on. So I had him sit in the car and video it. So we went to the headquarters location. And I just got out, walked up in the parking lot, didn't have a badge, didn't have anything, wasn't nothing on the truck that said whatever pest control. So So I'm going up, and I just start spraying my water. It's water. I feel the thing with water outside the building. So I'm spraying outside the building. I'm acting like I got a lint the whole time. Because who messes with somebody with lint, right? So I'm looking at the inside of these windows, and I'm getting all this stuff on video, and I go around. And the building was oblong or kind of rectangle shape. And they had these big fences up, but during the daytime they had the fences open, where you could go in the back and whatever. So I'm walking back through there, and I didn't want to go in the front door. I wanted to figure out a way to come in kind of from the back. So it just so happens, as I'm still walking around whistling my crazy song, spraying the side of the building with water, I see a guy come out of the side of the building with a metal door, with some hand trucks. And it's the coolest thing in the video. You see him go out, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I whoop up the little end of the sprayer. In the video, the door's about to close, and you see the end of the sprayer come up like this and hook it. And I open it up, and I walk in there. I said, man, that was too easy. Now I'm on the inside. Where do I go? I'm in the back of this huge warehouse, and I see records. I said, yeah, jackpot. That's where I want to go. That's where their assets are at, a lot of them. So I go over, and I'm trying to open up the door, and it's locked. And I said, shit. So I step back. About that time, I hear the guy come in. Hey! And I was thinking, man, here I go, I'm busted. Starting to get a little bit nervous, but not really. So I just keep playing. I turn around real slow and spray a little water over the place. So I'm looking at him, to keep the thing going. He walks up, and I thought he was really going to reprimand me or something. And he goes, did you sign in? I said, well, I'm just here for the winterization special. No, dummy, did you sign in? I didn't sign in. Follow me. So he proceeds to bring me to the front of the organization. So everybody in the building sees me walking in with their employees. So that's that trust already. They see me coming in with him. I sign in, never ask for ID. So I sign in a name I made up of a famous actor I thought was pretty funny. So anyway, I signed in this crazy John name. And he goes, okay. He goes, down that way is the cafeteria, and the other one's over here. All right. Well, he didn't know I had a wireless access point inside my jacket. So they just let me go. I'm walking down the hall, spraying, singing, just happy to be there as I could, singing my little song. And I go into the first room that nobody was in. So I crawl up under the desk, pull the access point out. I'm putting it in there, I didn't put it in the network because I didn't want to introduce risk, but I did plug it up and have the lights on, So I'm under the desk, I'm plugging that up, and I hear this lady goes, excuse me. I said, damn, second time I'm called. So I reach around, I look back around, kind of zipping my jacket up. She goes, would you mind spraying my office? I've got some bugs in here. I said, no problem. So she proceeded to carry me on into her office, and I sprayed around with my water, and I got on video spraying real good. I got to open the cabinet up, and it falls off, and a lot of little funny things happen, but at the end of that, just walked right back out, and they said, whoop, you got to sign out. I said, all right, no problem. So I signed out to my John name I put on there and walked out and left. Never got caught. They never figured anything out. We went back to debrief them, and their jaws dropped when they saw me. Wait a second, you're not retarded. You're not a bug guy. Set us up. Yeah, that's part of it. So they watched the video, and needless to say, they've got a lot better about visitor control and verifying your real identification. I think that's probably about it on time, isn't it? Close?
Got about 10 minutes, although we might need to set up time for the next guy. It's just Dave, so we can probably just totally skip it. It's all good.
Yeah.
I was leaving to go anyway.
Yeah, I'm about to finish up. I don't really have anything good to say anyway. One thing that I did learn that you don't need to do is impersonate a federal officer.
Oh, bad idea.
When you go do that. Bad, yeah. Got away with it. I got, this is about 4 years ago, I guess. I went in and I impersonated an FFIEC auditor for banks, and I printed out the FFIEC audit checklist, and I had my little suit on, my hair was all kind of crazy, and I ended up walking into all these organizations. And, when the auditor shows up, they oh, can I get you anything, Here's my daughter's phone number, place down the road, go eat, and here's your best buddy. But I was talking to a friend of mine at the InfraGard meeting. He's an FBI agent, and I was like, oh, Bill, you won't believe this, man. I tore him up last week. He goes, oh, yeah. I said, yeah, I dressed up as a FFIEC auditor and went into this bank, man. I just walked all over the place. He goes, Josh, you can't do that, man. It's a federal an employee. You can't, please don't fake those guys anymore. All right. And actually, I got pulled over by a state trooper on the way back, and hanging on the rearview mirror was my FFIEC fake credentials I had made up. So I'm glad he didn't go any further from that. So this lesson learned. I don't do any federal employees anymore. But the bug man's still my favorite. That still works pretty good. And I think that's probably all I really got. I got some really finishing thoughts here. Just my thoughts are, not to rely on a single tool for pen testing. I think most people who are here, they're smart enough to realize and get it that you can't push the button and do a real pen test for you. At the end of the day, when we're doing these type of security assessments, the deliverable is what the client paid for. They're really paying for. So it's, everybody does reporting different, but what really works well is a real dumbed down, high level executive summary with some little neat graphs and things in there, and then in the technical part, you can really dig down deep. Don't skimp on scope. I really try to let an organization understand it's not just your network or your applications. We got to look holistically at the whole big picture. We got to try everything because the bad guys are. We don't want to just test one application. The other part of that is as I get a little older, I look at this a little different. And it's not just, it used to be just the rush or whatever. First of all, it's really cool to get paid to hack, right? So you can be a bad guy and go in and see what you can really do if you really hated this company. But I'm looking now and trying to tie this testing into policy and procedures. So when you do an email test, we could probably go and anybody could run an email tool and end up getting into the network or exploiting some users. But at the end of the day, the real value is tying that back to the policies and procedures. What are they training the users not to do in the first place? Are they training them not to click on links, not to do this, not to do that? Whatever they're training them not to do is what I want to do. So I want to come in and track all that and see, out of 80 users, 40, click the link, and out of those 40, blah, 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 I'm going to break all that down. But you can tie it back into saying, this is what they did, and here's what your policy says. So you can tie. I like to try to tie testing now, especially when testing employees or testing humans, tying that all back into policy and procedure. And nothing new. I like for organizations to try to follow their instant response. Don't, hey, I'm coming in to hack. That's fine. Don't turn your stuff off for me. You wouldn't turn it off for a bad guy. Let's be realistic. Leave it on. Let's see if it works. If it works, hey, do what you're supposed to do. No, I don't want you to. If your intrusion detection guys call you want to shut me down, let them. That means I got denied. So I got to change my approach. Same thing a bad guy would do. But I like to see them follow their actual instant response policy. If they're getting a bunch of emails sent in and they identify them, go ahead and let your employees call up and report it. Put it through that process. See if it works. So. That's all I got. I had a really nice, presentation to give you before. This one I wrote in just a little bit of time and mumbled through it. So I hope it, provided a little bit of value and maybe a different way of looking at some things. So thank you all for having me, and enjoy the beer, I guess, later on.
Got a comment on the RFID door locks. In our facility, we were more concerned with ingress than egress.
Right.
So what we ended up doing was fail closed or fail secure, but the door knob on the inside of the door would work to open the door, but not on the outside. So even if there was no power, people could still get out.
Yeah, do it.
I worked in the nuclear industry for 11 years, and here in the United States, they fail closed because
Right.
your life is not nearly as important as the facility security. So when
Yeah.
the power goes down, whatever room you're in, you're stuck.
You're in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's on fire. Oh well.
what we ended up doing when I was over in Australia, I wanted to set the world record for reading Gen 2 RFID. So we ended up getting this crazy scientist guy. He doesn't get out much, but he helped me design a really badass helical antenna. So we ended up putting, I don't know, the wattage and everything we put to it. It was way illegal. over the 4 watts of FCC allowed. But I was going to present that at RuxCon. I talked at RuxCon in 2006, and I was going to go show this device off, but it kind of got me thinking, okay, 4 watts is legal. We're probably pumping 250 through this thing. I just put it back on the shelf and all the cool stuff. I can't show anybody.
I've actually wanted to look into some of this as far as like exotic injection vectors. I'm assuming you were hired by the company that you were doing the testing. Trying to find a company that lets you actually test some of this stuff is kind of difficult, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, very difficult. It was a job for a manufacturer, a tag manufacturer.
Okay.
That and the one from the Mexican government.
Because I'm thinking of RFID tags for some research I'm doing, them, barcodes, and mag stripes. But I'm not sure who I'm going to get to test it against.
Right.
I'm sure there's stuff that all these things are vulnerable because who thinks about sanitizing the data that comes in from a barcode?
Right.
But finding a real-world test case is going to be kind of legally difficult.
Yeah, that's the kind of I danced around. I had some really Chris Patchen. This was when he was starting doing it, and I was bouncing things back with him, and he showed me how to get the HID source code for a lot of the stuff. So I got that, and then now I had all these HID readers, and I was making this stuff work. I don't know, man. I get scared going and releasing a lot of that stuff because it's legal.
Not all the door access stuff. How much is that Gen 2, and how much is that is stuff in like the other? Well, what is it? The MyFair 13 point something megahertz.
Yeah, 13.3, whatever it is, 13.56 megahertz.
And then I think a lot is a lot of the car parking stuff and like toll passes. That stuff that's a lot of times in the 125 kilohertz range.
Yeah, because that's the long distance, and that's going to be the active tag. So the tags itself are actually powered.
Besides RF Idiot, you know any
Yeah.
particularly good tools? I got some cheap Chinese.
Lucas Grunwald from Germany.
So I got a bunch of cheap German. I got cheap Chinese RFID reader writers. Unfortunately, documentation is very poor,
Right.
and the code is even worse, as best I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, what I did is I used, there's a USB, I think it's RFID Toys, or there's this little reader about this big, and it's this long USB connector that goes into your laptop, but it reads and writes, so you can actually play around with it and bypass some of the restrictions with protocols.
I'll pick your brain more tonight over beer.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.